System dial. End meet mute all. Button.
You know a dream is like a river, ever changing as it flows. And a dreamer's just a vessel that must follow where it goes, trying to learn from what's behind and never knowing what's in store. Makes each day a constant battle, just to stay between the shore. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Maxwell Ivy, known around the world as the Blind Blogger, and this is another episode of What's Your Excuse, where I interview guests and help you explode those excuses that are holding you back. And I bring people on the show who have overcome adversity or thrived despite of difficult life circumstances, people who have world-tested advice that can help you move forward, and people who just happen to interest, motivate, and inspire me personally. You can find me at theblindblogger.net, theblindblogger.net. You can also search for the What's Your Excuse show on all your major podcast players. And I just want to mention this just shortly. I do feel for all the people out there who are suffering from the effects of the coronavirus, both those who are physically affected or have loved ones affected, but also those people whose businesses, whose forms of entertainment, their religious worship is being negatively affected by the fact that it's just not safe for us to congregate in large groups right now. And I hope that by continuing to record my podcast and by encouraging other podcasters out there to send out more episodes, we can help encourage, inspire, entertain, and distract people during these times. And I hope that I do that today with my interview. You can find me at theblindblogger.net. And if you want to get yourself out there more and do podcasts, I am the guy. I've been doing it for 7 years, been on over 200 podcasts myself. And I've helped other friends and clients get booked, and I can help make you the next podcast guest rock star. And just one last thing I want to mention, my sponsor, Create My Voice, Chip and Pam Edwards. Without them, life would not be anywhere near as good for me as, especially in the area. There would have been conferences I wouldn't have been able to attend and some other things for this podcast I wouldn't have been able to do without them. They help get your podcast and your blog so people can find it on Alexa and Google. They help you create a voice brand, and you can find them by saying, Alexa, play Create My Voice, or Google, talk to Create My Voice, or you can do it the old-fashioned way. Just go to createmyvoice.com. All right, today I'm very lucky. I have a lady I met through Twitter, a new friend of mine. She is an author, and she's been an author in her entire life, but has recently hit a couple of big milestones for herself in the area of publishing. I'm looking forward to talking to her about her personal life and her journey. Her name is Mira Jefreys, and you can find her at mirajefreys.com. She's also on Facebook and Twitter. And if you're on Twitter, I highly encourage you to find her because she's one of the most generous, supportive people in the writer and readers communities on Twitter, and you won't be sorry for that. She grew up in a family, her mother was a single mom raising 3 kids, a lot of poverty, some bullying. Her only outlet as a child and throughout most of her life has been writing. Nowadays, she's married to her best friend, has 6 kids, 2 grandkids. I don't even want to guess how many dogs, cats, and other critters she has in her house. I'm really looking forward to talking to her. Mira, welcome to What's Your Excuse?
Thank you, Max. It's nice to be here with you.
Well, it's nice to have you here too, and it's really good to have a new interview, a new conversation to have, because thanks to some family situations for a couple of guests that I had booked, I haven't really gotten to sit down with anybody in over 2 weeks. So I'm really looking forward to this. I guess the question I want to know is, before we get into some of this stuff, is how did you discover writing, and what about it has helped you to stay sane and to be able to cope with your life throughout everything from being a young girl when you wrote your first book at 8 to now?
Well, I actually first discovered writing when I was very young, and it was a way for me to deal with the things that were going on around me. You know, I was selectively mute. I didn't really talk to people because I was just basically just observing everybody around me. I didn't really like everything that I saw. So I had to get the thoughts that were in my head out. And so that's when I picked up a pen and a piece of paper and started writing. And so that's exactly how it is today. You know, I'm 40 something years old and it's still the same. It's therapeutic for me, you know, whenever I feel extremely stressed or, you know, things that are not really going according to plan. You know, I need to express those feelings, and I'm still a more, I'm not going to say an introverted person. I'm very reserved and quiet, but that's how I get my, you know, that's how I get my thoughts out and my feelings and expressions.
Okay, now I've never known anybody who was selectively mute. Was there a particular event that caused you to decide you didn't like talking to people?
No, not necessarily. What it was as a child, you know, you mentioned some bullying. I was bullied by family members, you know, and I did suffer a little some abuse at the hands of cousins, and so I just didn't want to talk. And also, I had a speech impediment, which I still have today. I have a slight stammer that, you know, if I get extremely nervous, you know, it's hard for me to get my words out. So, so all of that, all of those things made me want to just stay quiet, because when I had my stammer, you know, I had cousins who, you know, were just kind of mean. And, you know, when I was trying to get my thoughts out, they were like, you know, just spit it out already. You know, what's wrong with you? And, you know, going on and just saying horrible things. But as a child, you take those things that people say, you know, and you really, for me, you know, it really affected me as a child, and I just didn't want to say anything to anyone.
Right. I have a woman that I've known for a while. She does a podcast called Yes and she likes to talk about her parents. She says, by today's standards, her parents would have both been abusive, and that kind of sounds like back at that time, they probably wouldn't have called it bullying because it was a family member or family members, but that's what we would call it today.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's that's how, you know, the Southern family dynamics are, you know, either you were tough or you weren't, you know. So I wasn't that tough kid, you know, I was never really tough. I was the really quiet, you know, the bookworm. So I was like the object of many, you know, lots of bullying.
I see. Well, since people are probably wondering about it, you say that you still get nervous and you still stammer when you get nervous. Then what have you told yourself, or what techniques have you employed today as you prepared to be on my podcast?
Well, for one thing, yes, I am extremely nervous,
Well,
because
good.
I am having an interview with Max Wiley. Like, oh my God, oh my God, this is like a dream come true. And I'm like totally like fangirling, like right now. Okay, my excitement. Okay, I gotta contain it. Anyways, so some of the things that I do is breathing. You know, just take a deep breath. And then I always say to myself, think about what you want to say before you say it. That's why I've become known as a quiet listener. I listen and I wait until my mind processes what I want to say, and then I say it. So that comes out sometimes as me talking very deliberately, you know, and that's purposely done. Because when I get really excited, you know, like when we're, you know, within friends and we're talking, and along with my Southern slang, everything comes out sounding like gibberish. So I make it a point to talk very deliberately.
Okay. Well, I'm going to help you out with a couple of things here, and I'm sharing these not just for you, but for my audience, because I think some of them are probably going through the same things. First off, I am nobody special. I am not no big shit. I grew up in a family of carnival owners. I grew up doing bookings. I spent 20 years probably having no choice but to be an extrovert when I really didn't want to be. The only way I could work a game on the midway, and as people walk by, go, say, you want to play the game, or say it's $3 for that. The only way I could do this, I had to have a script. I could only say whatever words I planned to say. And if somebody came up and said, you know, Max, you really should be doing it this way, that ruined my whole day. And sometimes I'd just be quiet the rest of the night and hope somebody walked up and handed me their money.
Right.
The other thing is just, you know, there's nothing wrong with being a fanboy. It happens to all of us. Just this last week, I was speaking in Orlando at a conference, and I had to be in two different places on the same day. The first half of the day, I was in a group learning how to be a better speaker and how to get more speaking gigs. The second half of the day, I'm going to go give a talk to podcasters and encourage them to start their podcast. So after lunch, I go in, I'm sitting in the back of the room, and people keep saying, yeah, we're looking forward to hearing what Dave says in the second half. And they go to start the second half, and it turns out that Dave is Dave Jackson. Now, Dave Jackson is the founder of School for Podcasting. He is big shit. He is a big time podcaster. He has started probably 20 shows of his own and probably hundreds of shows for other people. And so I'm sitting in the back of the room. I went through half a bag of Lifesavers and had to do deep breathing myself. So we all have things that scare us. Some of us don't look scared while we're doing it. And that's so I wanted to share that with you. So you wrote then and you write now in order to get yourself out. Now, what was it like when you wrote that first book? What was it, Fox and Duck, or Duck and Fox? And it ended up getting published or representing your entire grade or your entire school. How did you deal with that as somebody who's generally shy? That
was very, very, very exciting, because I just did my best. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. You know, they said, write a book, and I wrote a story. You know, I was like, this is great. I get a chance to do what I want to do. So I wrote the story and turned it into the teacher. And then she came to me later and said, hey, you know, yours was great because we wrote the story and we had to actually make the book. And she said, your story was chosen, you know, among the whole grade, and we're gonna send it on to more awards or whatever. And then, but before they sent it on, they put it in the lunchroom, you know, and it had my name underneath it. I was so proud, you know, but you know, it was like, because of the family dynamics at that time, I couldn't really, you know, share that. I shared it with my mother, you know, she was so proud of me, you know, but that was it. That's as far as it went. So I really couldn't be as happy about my first publication as I could be, you know, as most people could be. But I kept that as one of those milestones that forever changed me, because I said to myself, if I could do this now, you know, this is what I truly want to do. Because I knew then that's what I wanted to do, because it made people happy. You know, I saw people reading my story, and then smiles, you know, came across their faces. And that was very, very liberating for me, because it made me realize that I can make a change. And even at a young age like that, I wanted to make a change in people's lives.
Okay. And I noticed something the way you were describing what happened is it doesn't sound like you thought you were writing a book. It sounds like you thought you were just telling a story. And I'm wondering if maybe that allowed you to write the book, and if maybe that's one of the things that gets in the way of people who want to be authors, is that they make the project too big for themselves.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. It's like when you have an idea, okay? When you have an idea, it's best to just make little small milestones, you know, one chapter at a time. Because if you sit down and say, I'm going to write a book, and you just start out with the first 50 words, and you want to write a full-length novel, and that's going to be extremely huge undertaking, and just taking it in little small steps. You're telling a story, one scene at a time.
Yeah, and I also find that people I talk to that are really good as far as producing a lot of content, and as far as books goes, they generally find lots of things in their lives as opportunities for storytelling. What do you think?
I agree, because there are a lot of elements that I have in my novel, Archer, that is a good opportunity to tell a story and teach a lesson, you know, because writers have a lot of power, you know, and so do producers who produce movies, and they have a lot of power in their hands to literally change the world. You can change the world one story at a time. It may sound a little cliche, but it's true. You know, you can change a person's view and their outlook on life by telling a story that's, you know, either good or bad, you know. So I choose to do, you know, make good outcomes and happy endings.
Menu what system Friday 10 Maxwell Friday 1060 Zoom.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you do that, and I think more people need to consider the story they're telling and the people they're telling it for, the people that can benefit from it. as opposed to thinking I'm going to write this book and I'm going to become famous or rich or both. Are you still
Yes,
there?
yes, I'm here. And
Oh, yeah.
I also agree because, you know, my whole publishing journey was for my parents, you know, and that's one of the main things I brought to the fore when I started getting active on Twitter. You know, I wrote my book for my parents, you know, and if it sells, you know, that's awesome, you know, but even if it doesn't, you know, I wrote it for them, you know, and they're happy knowing that I accomplished something and I did it for them. You know, it's just one of those things to, you know, you have your parents who, without them, you can't be the person, you know, you wouldn't have been even alive. So, you know, that was my way of paying them back and thanking them for what they've done for me.
Right. Why don't you tell people the name of the book and a little bit about it, and then also mention your road trip and the feelings you experienced when you actually delivered the first copy to your parents.
Um, well, the story, my book is called Archer, and I'm going to hold up a little, so you can see that. It's a little backwards, but it's called Archer. And it's a story of a Southern dynamic family, you know, and a story about forgiveness, redemption, love, friendship, all of the dynamics that make up a family. And it's one of those things that once the story idea popped up into my head, it stayed with me for a very long time. You know, I had been thinking about it for almost a year before I actually sat down, because due to a lot of things in my personal life, you know, with whatever, I wasn't able to get it started as soon as I wanted to. But once I got it down on paper, you know, it was just going straight forward from there. But I wanted to tell the story in a way that if anyone is experiencing anything that the main characters were experiencing, they were able to see that you can get past hardships and you can get past things that may prevent you from moving forward in your life. You know, a lot of people are running away from their demons of their past, or they have a lot of trauma that prevents them from doing things. And this story is just a way to let people know that who may be experiencing that you can overcome it. There are ways to overcome it, you know, and
Yep.
and I feel as though I have the freedom of speech to say that because I've overcome a lot of trauma, you know, and just being able to pour my emotions into this book was really great because that was also therapeutic for me. And regarding my road trip, this is the second road trip that I've taken, you know, to deliver books. But, you know, this one kind of came a little weird because of the coronavirus. But the first one, my father had just had an emergency amputation surgery, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get the book in time because I had ordered the proof copy just so I can be able to show it to him, because a lot of things were going on. I wasn't really sure what was going to happen with him. You know, he's diabetic, so he had developed gangrene in both of his legs, and one of them had to be amputated. So I was a little stressed out driving all the way down, but before I left home, the book came just the day before I left home. So I was like, yes, it's here. So I was able to, you know, deliver the book to my dad, and he was like, whoa, this is awesome. You know, and it made me so happy because here he was, you know, just having emergency surgery. You know, his life has dramatically changed with losing his leg. And then, but he held my book and he said over to the guy in the next bed, he was like, hey, this is my daughter's book and she just wrote this. You know, my daughter's an author, you know, and it just made me so happy. And it was life-changing for me because I saw that no matter what, you know, my dad was proud of me. And that's all that mattered.
Yeah, and I want to get the books in order here. I was actually asking about your first book because that's about the time we started connecting on Twitter. What's the name of the book you wrote for your parents? That's the one I was.
Oh yeah, I wrote them both. So my short story was the first one.
Okay.
Okay, the short story was A Time to Dance, and
Yeah.
that was just a short 25-page short story, you know, and that one got rave reviews. I think it has an average of 4.8 reviews all across Goodreads and Apple, and it's on Amazon also now, you know, and the people that read it really liked it because it was a very wholesome short story, you know, and that's my style. I like to write wholesome short stories that anyone can read.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned something there that I've never really. I pride myself on being somebody who focuses on experiences, especially small experiences. But you just mentioned something there that I've never really paid attention to, and I should have. I know how good it makes me feel whenever I hold a copy of one of my new books in my hands, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about that. But I never really focused on the experience of friends and family the first time they see one of my books in print. So I'll have to pay more attention to that in the future. So talk about holding your book in your hand for the first time, since you've already talked about your dad calling you his daughter and an author.
Oh yeah. Well, the novel is the only book that I actually have in my hand at this time, and that was great. It's one of those feelings that you can't really explain. You just experience it, and it was one of those things where, I opened up the box and it's like a baby. Everybody says that. It's like, oh my God, this is my baby, and that's exactly what it is, because you created it. You created the characters inside of it. And here it is in living color in your hands. And that is like the best feeling ever, and even if, I always joke, it's like, even if no one likes it, I like it, and
Yeah.
I remember hearing someone on Twitter say, even it's like a baby, even if your baby's ugly, it's still beautiful to you.
No such thing as an ugly baby, that's for sure.
Exactly. And so, in regards to a novel, it was the most satisfying experience ever to actually hold the novel in my hands, and it was just a beautiful experience for me.
Right. Now, for people who haven't published, but they're thinking about publishing, and most of you are probably thinking about ebooks, but there's a couple of things about print copies of your books that I need to mention. One is it's great to announce to the world that your book has gone live on Amazon, but nothing compares to holding a print copy in your hands. I think we already know you agree with me on that one.
Yes.
The other thing is there's a process to creating a print book, and for Amazon and other companies, it's different than the process of creating an ebook, because the print book has to look good when it's printed, whereas the ebook only has to look good on screen. And so there are some different restrictions you have to follow. And so in order to avoid Amazon sending out books that you say, well, those books were garbage, I'm not paying for them, Amazon requires you to order what's called a review copy. And sometimes you'll order more than one review copy. So you submit your book, including your cover art and any art you have in the book, and then you purchase a review copy. They send it out to you, and you look through it and make sure that it came out in print just the way it was when you submitted it. And then once you do that, you reply back to Amazon that everything is great, or you go back to the document you've submitted and try to fix it, and then you order another review copy. And that's the process as far as a print book goes. And it's really not all that bad, but it is different. And so, there can be a pretty good delay between the time you submit your ebook and the time you actually get to hold that print book in your hand. And it does build up some anticipation and also some dread, to where when you open that box, it is something. It is really something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the last thing is that for authors, and a lot of you have been told you don't need to do a print book. But the one thing I am finding is that when I tell somebody I'm an author, that they're like, oh no, not another one of them idiots. But if I tell them I'm an author and then ask if they want to see one of my books, and then I pull one of my books out of my messenger bag and show it to them, the conversation changes. And I'm just wondering if you've experienced any of that as far as your book, now that you have some in print.
Well, yeah, sometimes I actually don't experience that, because of the people that I surround my life with, a lot of them don't really know the many different levels that I have to myself, because I'm a very multi-layered person. And then when they do find out that I'm an author and they actually see the book in my hands, they're like, wow, it's like that wow factor, But, I was like, I do have family members who are like, oh, whatever. You've been writing all your life, oh, whatever. you know, and it's like, okay, because you have to have both, because that balances out, because you can't have so many accolades and people thinking so positively of you, and then you don't have any negative thoughts, you know, because it's not going to be very balanced. You know, I take the negative and the positive and just keep it moving, because, you know, in the end, it's what you know, what you are capable of doing. That's what it comes down to, because as an author, it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter what people think about your writing skills, but if you just give your very best, that's all it matters. Just give your very best and write a good story. You know, that's what makes an author.
Right. Well, in my opinion, I don't have, in my personal situation, I don't have any real negative responses to any of my work online or any of my books, and I want to follow that up by saying, I do not want nor need a troll or haters, but I find there's more negative stuff running around in my head than there is online about my books.
Exactly. Yeah. And I don't need a troll either. So guys, stay away. I don't need a troll or negativity, please. No. But yeah, that's true. You know, it's all in our heads. And, you know, I've seen a lot of our author friends on Twitter, you know, expressing the same thing. Is that little voice in your head that says you're not good enough, or this story is not good enough. But we just need to learn how to make that voice a little quieter. You know, it's always going to be there, because that's a part of human nature. But we just got to make sure that as authors, we just continue to put forth our best and continue to say to ourselves, this is good enough. This is going to be good enough.
One of the things that I get asked a lot by podcast hosts is, do you ever get over those thoughts that with more books, do you get over those thoughts? And my personal opinion is, you don't get over it, you just get better with dealing with it. Now you've published twice now, and you've published a lot of other things that most of our listeners probably don't know about. But does it get easier? Does it go away, or do you just get better at handling it?
You get better. For me personally, I get better at handling it. Yes. You know, I have published hundreds, maybe thousands of other, you know, articles. I used to work as a ghostwriter, so I'm no new person to writing. But as right now in this phase of my life is important, it was important for me to do this for me. You know, it's one thing to write for other people, it's another thing to write for yourself. But to answer your question, yes, it does get better for me. It gets easier dealing with those negative thoughts, because they will come, you know, or the first negative review that you get, you know, it's like, like I had, of my first short story, I had a 3-star, and I was like, wow, she didn't really like my story, you know, but in the end, I was like, it's a 3-star review. And I totally appreciate her opinion, because I value this reviewer's opinion, like, really highly. And it's like, okay, so not everybody is going to like what we do, you know, not everybody's going to like your story. Not everybody's going to like your book as a whole, you know, and that's totally okay. But we can't take one person's or 2 people's or 5 people's negative reviews and make that, you know, everything about our lives. You know, as authors, you know, we could easily just lay down and stop working, but we can't do that.
You know, I love how you approach that 3-star review, because there's a lot of conversations online about, what do you do about a bad review, whether it's on your book or your podcast? What do you do? And it's usually more of a technical thing. Do you complain about it? Do you call them out? Do you write about it? Do you try to get it removed? But I love what you did, and you did what I try to do, and it's an experience. It's part of the process. And the fact that this woman left a review has value, even if I don't agree with it. I just love that.
Yeah. Yep. That's how I feel, because, and I was even going to reach out to her in particular, you know, when Archer is actually officially released. And in a way, I was like, oh no, she might not like this one either. But at the same time, it's okay if she doesn't, you know, because I value her opinion a lot, because she's an excellent reviewer online, you know, very well known. So, you know, it all is about your attitude. You know, it's all about the attitude. You know, a person can give a 1-star review, and then that will totally end your world, and it'll be like you can lash out against it, or you can just keep moving, you know. And that's all. There's only 2 choices for me, at least. There's only 2 choices: either to stop or keep moving.
Yeah, I'm having a great conversation, y'all, with Mira Jefreys. You can find her at mirajeffreys.com, and that's Jeffreys. But of course, it'll be in the blog post. She is a longtime ghostwriter, written many articles for other people, and now publishing her own works. And I do hope that y'all will check out her latest book, Archer, which just came out like this week or in the last couple of weeks. And I think the interesting thing about Archer is it parallels so many people's lives today, in that all of these things happen in Archer because I guess one of the main characters, a Southern grandmother, has a health emergency. And it seems like we almost have to have a crisis in order to change anymore.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. The grandmother is suffering from cancer, and the entire family reconvenes to help care for her. And that's as far as I'm going to go, because y'all need to buy the book.
Yes, please, Max, no spoilers. No spoilers. But Max, I wanted to say that Archer is available for pre-order. The official launch is March 23rd, which is about a week and a half. March 23rd is the official release, but is available for pre-order on all major online retailers.
All right, so y'all just look for Archer or look for Mira Jefreys, or if you send me a link to where the pre-launch can be viewed at, I'll make sure that it gets out there as well. Now let's talk a little bit about your freelance work, because there's some people that they don't want to write a book, but they love writing and they would like to make a little money, or they would like to get to have the experience of having their work published in a magazine. So would you tell people a little bit about your process as it was when you were doing that more, as far as, how did you get the work? How difficult was it to actually get selected? And then what kind of document or article length type stuff were we talking about?
Okay. Well, first, I was doing a majority of my freelancing work when my situation in life changed, and I found myself going from being a work-at-home mom to a single mother of 3 kids and having to support them. And so I needed to do something. And just starting out, I already knew you have to have the confidence. You have to know that you can write, and you can't go on into the freelance world with just a thinking like, maybe I can write. No, you have to be confident, knowing that what you write is good stuff and people will want to use your skill. So it was a little difficult at first, only because just breaking into the market was difficult because there was so much competition. And American writers actually have a lot of competition with overseas writers, because a lot of, for instance, webmasters who have a lot of content, or websites that have a lot of content, they really do outsource the work for cheap. That's just being honest. And Americans, we have different prices than providers overseas. So that's where the struggle is when you say, for instance, either a British writer or an American English writer, and you have overseas writers who will actually do the same work for like $1 per article when you are charging
Wow.
$25 per article. Same level of skill, but they charge cheaper. So that's where the struggle is. But the key is having a portfolio that showcases what you can do, and make sure that your portfolio has articles or any kind of writing samples, that are error-free, because that exactly is what they're looking for. If you have, a portfolio that has errors riddled all through your work, no, they're going to pass you by. Just showcase your best work, and then just be competitive, and don't be afraid to wiggle your prices a little bit, negotiate, or don't be afraid to. I had to offer free work starting out, only because I started out offering free work to people to get the contract, and then be like, okay, you like my work, so let's talk real money now. We shouldn't be afraid to offer pro bono work, but if you don't want to do that, but don't be afraid to wiggle your prices, being negotiable.
Yeah, and just so you know, Elizabeth Gilbert, who's known for Eat, Pray, Love, I read her book Big Magic a couple years ago, and she has done lots of freelance writing before, during, and after the book and the movie deal. And her thing is that it's not really respectful to your gift to expect your book to support you completely. So she continues to write. So you're in very good company with other writers who've been, very successful, but continue to do the freelance work because that's what has always paid the bills.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. So now you mentioned going from being a stay-at-home mom to a single mom. At that point, how many kids did you have, and would you be willing to talk about it just a little bit for the listeners?
Sure.
Help them understand how you were able to just keep going and make the transition, and then to actually, what appears to me to be successful in that transition.
Well, it wasn't easy. The transition wasn't easy. It was like a totally different lifestyle. I married when I was 18 years old. I got married when I was 18 years old, and I have 3 natural children. And so 3 children produced from that marriage. And so at that time when I realized that my first marriage was over, I just prepared myself, and I already knew what I had to do, and it was a little scary because the fact of the matter is I was working when I got married at the age of 18, and I had been out of the market, out of the workforce for a long time, for a long time. So anyone looking at my resume will be like, wow, the last time you worked was 1999? Really? It's like, that was a long time, but it was really intimidating. So what I did is I got a job with my friend. It was like a little part-time job at an office, an office place. It was a virtual office. And I learned skills that I needed, in the field that I wanted to go in, which was business administration. I do not have any college degrees in business administration, but I learned. It was on the job training. Everything that I can do now, I learned how to do myself, because of one thing or the other, and I couldn't, get the actual, education for it. But I made that transition. It was hard. It was very emotional because I was dependent on someone, 24/7, and then it was only me that I was dependent on, and the children were looking at me like, oh my gosh, Ma, well, we need, and then it automatically flew me back to growing up because it was 3 of us when I was a child, and my mom was a single mom, and I was like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? But I decided in my mind that I was not going to be a statistic. I was not going to be that. I was going to do something, and I was going to excel over what in my mind people would expect of me. I felt as though, being from the South, people expected, an African American mother to have just a lot of kids and be single, and I was like, I'm not going to do that. And that's just one of those things that I was not happy with, and I said, I'm going to do something with myself, and so that's where the freelancing came in. And I just put myself out there. It was felt exposed and vulnerable to the world. But over time, maybe within a couple of months, people saw the quality of my writing, and they kept hiring me, so much so that I was like, I need to turn down some work because I don't have time to do all of this. I had many clients from all over the world. I had oil industry clients from Saudi Arabia. I had clients in the UK. I mean, literally all over the world. And I was very blessed to actually, be able to acquire those clients, and just being very brand new, fresh in the freelancing market, But I just attribute it all to attitude and faith, and knowing that regardless of what happens, you just got to keep moving. There's no turning back. I don't believe in regressing and backtracking. That's not even an option.
Right. And nowadays you're working for some sort of a corporate thing now, correct? I mean,
yes, I am.
Yeah, because at one point you mentioned on Twitter that you now have to give talks in front of hundreds of people at a time. And Of course, that's probably on hold for now for a while, but how does somebody who stammers and was bullied as a kid for her speech, how do you do that?
Oh, very, like I said, I just learned the key to not, being overwhelmed by a stammer is to be very calm, and to know your material that you're presenting. You have to know your material that you're presenting, or the nervousness is going to overwhelm you. And that's exactly what I have to do. I have to be very calm and practice breathing, and very deliberate speech. And yes, I work in a corporate situation, but at the same time, myself, I'm still this person that you see in front of, or, that I am right now, the person that I'm represented right now.
I know what you meant. I know us blind people use see, saw, and look. We use them words.
Yeah.
But I love it. I get a kick out of it when, people try to tap dance around whether or not I should say those words to Max. So I appreciate that. It's giving me a little bit of a chuckle there. So now, so that means that when it comes to speaking, me and you would be totally different speakers, because you would have to be totally organized. You would have to have notes and bullet points and probably slides. Me, I go up there, I have a playlist of stories I'm going to tell and points I want to make, but we would most likely be totally different speakers, I would imagine.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I have to be very organized and know exactly what I'm going to say. And if I veer off my topic, that's really bad for me, because I'll just like start on another subject and then I'll be like, how did I get here? And I can't remember how I got there.
Yes. Yeah. But I would imagine your philosophy of just continuing to move forward, you would finish the talk either way, and something about as long as you finish, people seem to regard your work well.
That's right. As long as you finish.
Yeah, as long as you finish. So, yeah. So now you've written the long short story, A Time to Dance, and Archer comes out in a week and a half or so. So I'm going to ask you the question I hate the most. What are you planning to do next?
That's a good question. I do have a couple of works in progress that I really need to finish, that I really want to finish. I have one story that's like maybe a quarter, I don't know, maybe 50% done, that I had to put on hold. And I really want to get that story finished. And maybe I was thinking toward the end of the year to be able to publish a couple of more, maybe a novella sized books. So publishing is basically in the future for me, because it's great to have this great milestone to publish a novel, but it's kind of like once you're done, you have to do more. It's like one of those things, as you're a writer, you have to keep writing. You're always going to have another idea,
Yeah, I find that it's not a shortage of ideas. It's a shortage of time and energy and other stuff getting in the way. I've actually told other writers that the most dangerous thing you can do is write a first book.
Yes, that's exactly true. Because the first book that you write, you're going to be like, oh, as soon as you're almost done with that first one, you're already thinking about the second one. That's my problem. I have all these ideas, and just like you said, there's a lot of time constraints.
I wrote my second book, It's Not the Cookie, It's the Bag, because I didn't want to fix my other second book. So I was working on a memoir from earlier in my life, and I had like 60,000 words worth of stuff all in one big tangled ball of yarn file. And I was like, do I really want to make sense of this, or maybe I'll just start another book? And that's what I did. And other authors get a real big laugh out of that. Max, you started another book because you didn't want to finish the book you were writing. Exactly. Right. That's what I did.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So, yeah. So is there one thing besides just continuing to keep going that you would like to leave my listeners and viewers with before we finish here?
What are you asking again?
Is there one piece of advice other than just continuing to keep going that you'd like to leave people with?
Yes. Okay. I was thinking about that. And the one thing that I would like to say is there are a lot of people that have encountered negativity, okay?
Okay.
And negativity tends to stifle creativity, okay? Negativity and creativity cannot go together. So the main thing that I would like to say to people who are trying to write is to drown out the negativity. You know, it's like, especially if you have an online presence, particularly Twitter, and you see negativity, just drown it out, mute it, block it, do whatever you have to do, because negativity is extremely dangerous for someone's creative abilities, even mine. You know, sometimes I try to make sure that my presence is, it's all about positive, being positive and upbuilding, but even sometimes even some little negativity can slip in there, and it's just like, oh man, really, but at the same time, you can't let people get under your skin. Human relationships are very, very, very different at times, but as writers, in order for you to get from point A to point B, my advice is just to drown out any kind of negativity. And if you have negativity in your life, make sure that you have more positive things, say more positive things, do positive things, just make you have to be the light. You have to be the light in your life if you have a lot of negativity surrounding you, because that way, your creativity can flourish, and I hope that makes sense, because in this world that we're living in, there's so much negative things, but you have to be the light in your world. You have to be the light, and in that way, people can just take it in. People that are around you, they'll be encouraged. It's all about encouraging one another and encouraging yourself.
Right. And as I notice, I have some time left. What do your kids think about your writing? And maybe you want to talk about, I think one of your younger ones just started doing some creative stuff of his own, video game or video or slideshow or something like that. Animation, maybe it was.
Yeah, that's my baby Lucas. And all of my kids, they love the fact that I've written a book, but Lucas is my number one fan. I remember one day he came in when I was writing something, when it was still a work in progress, Archer was, and he was peeking over my shoulder, and I paused just to think. And then he was like, keep going, that's great, this is good, and just having his motivation and his enthusiasm was great for me. And he keeps saying to me, I cannot believe you wrote a book, Mom. That is like the greatest thing ever. I am so proud of you. And just hearing that from my kids, it makes me happy. And for him, he's into cooking. He wants to be a chef. So he's been reaching out to all of these celebrity chefs, and it makes his day when they respond back to him, like Amanda Freitag and also Ree Drummond, the Pioneer Woman. They both had responded back to him when he wanted me to post something, and that literally made his day.
Yeah, I love that, because I was one of the people trying to help him get that woman to reply back to him, and I thought that was really cool when she did. And it shows the positive nature of social media and of being online in general. It's just that more often than not, it's the negative stuff that makes the news, and people doing really cool stuff like that Pioneer Woman did for your son. That's really cool stuff, but it just doesn't make the news very often.
Exactly. But we can, and that's why my whole purpose with my presence is just to be positive and upbuilding, because even though the things that I say may not make the news, it may change a person's day. And that's all that matters to me. If it changes one person's day, then I've been successful, at least for that day.
Yeah, y'all. And if she thinks you're being negative, she will drop that emoticon on you where the police lights are coming and tell you to cut it out. Cut that out.
Oh, God, I love that.
Yeah. So
Thanks, Matt.
and for those people who are wondering, how does the blind guy know about the emoticons? Well, the company that approves all the emoticons requires that they come with an alternative text tag so that my screen reader can tell me what they're saying. And sometimes those emoticon descriptions don't match up with the emoticon, but I think that I can be pretty safe that when it says police car light revolving, that's some bad stuff going down.
Right. Oh, yes, you got me, Max. You got me. Yes,
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
really
Darn. I was also wanting to ask you, do you think people are going to ask you if Archer is maybe a little closer to your real life than fiction because you live in a small town in Kansas and you're from a small town in Georgia?
Yes, the ones who have actually already read it, they have asked me, is this based on your life? And I do tell them there are many aspects in the story that are based on my life, but not all. It's a fictional, it's a fictional story, but I did use a lot of little aspects about things that happened or went on when I was growing up. And the people who actually know me and who lived around me growing up, they will recognize those little things. And it's like a tribute. Certain things happen that weren't very good in the book, but at the same time, there are a lot of good things that happen. But yes, to answer the question, there are some aspects that did happen, but it's not all about my life.
Yeah. All I know is that for the time that I've spent living in South Carolina over my lifetime, I think that the character descriptions and the language is very accurate for the location, and I think I think people should not be surprised that that pretty much everybody in this book drinks sweet iced tea. Because trust me, you ain't lived till you've been to a restaurant in Jonesville, South Carolina, and asked for unsweet tea. That's an adventure there.
Oh yes, I know. It's one of those things. That's the house wine of the South. The
house wine of the South. I'm gonna have to remember that. I tell you, I really enjoyed this, Mira. I know you say you've been looking forward to talking to me, but I've been looking forward to having you on since we've connected on Twitter and become friends through it. And I hope this won't be the last time we have you on the show. Maybe when they turn one of your books into a movie or something, we can get you back and you'll remember us from before you were famous and that sort of stuff. So,
well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. And I could never forget the blind blogger. Thank you so much, Max.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Resume report.
All right. I've really enjoyed my conversation with Mira. We had another great interview today on What's Your Excuse? And I think the most important message you can take from her today, or well, maybe there's a couple. One is we just have to keep going, keep moving forward, keep finding a way and continuing to endure and persevere. And the other being that you have to stamp out the negative in your life, which probably also means you have to encourage the positive to come into your life. Mm-hmm. So I'm very happy with that. You can find her at mirajefreys.com. And of course, you can find me at theblindblogger.net, which is where you can purchase my books, the latest of which is The Blind Blogger's New York City Adventures, How You Can Make Your Dreams Come True. You can also sign up for my mailing list and be notified when my next book comes out, which we don't have a title for it yet, but it's about my experiences traveling the country during my first attempt at promoting my books via public speaking and book signings. Traveled to cities including Philadelphia, Buffalo, Lake Jackson, and Jonesville, South Carolina over about 6 weeks, and lots of lessons in there, including how I managed to do it with almost no money, because I know a lot of people put off doing things like that because they can't afford it yet. So find that all at theblindblogger.net. Until next time, be sure and check out the sponsor, Create My Voice. CreateMyVoice.com. Alexa, play Create My Voice. Google, talk to Create My Voice. So until next time, thank you and take care out there. This is the blind blogger trying to talk over that girl over in the corner. And I really do appreciate y'all, and I'll see y'all next time. Too many times we stand aside and let the waters slip away. Till what we put off to tomorrow has finally come today. So don't stand upon the shoreline and say you're satisfied. Choose to chase the rapids and dare to dance the tide.
Stop recording.
I've been saying that stupid part. I've been saying that part for my commercial for weeks now, and she hasn't noticed. She hasn't noticed me. I've been sneaking past her, but today.
Cancel. Yes. Do you want to stop cloud recording? Yes, but